call to order the December 16th, 1 p.m. school board workshop. Let's stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Lauren Ramirez, present.
Janie, Ruddy, present.
Christy, Chong.
LaShakia Moore.
And Mr. Furry will join us at 6 p.m. later tonight. Okay, let's move on to board member liaison updates.
All right, so Belterra Elementary, they continue to show strong family and community involvement through their PTO and SAC activities, which was held last week at their campus. Recent fundraising successes through the Family Fall Carnival, so they raised nearly $3,900, and all of that will directly support the classrooms and our students at that campus. And Coin Wars, which they raised over $3,200, and that actually went towards the Christmas for Community Heroes, which was that shopping event that some board members participated in, our superintendent. The school store and holiday shop were well supported by families, and really just looking forward to the 5K and health fair coming up, spring dance, a lot of grade level activities, and still trying to build the SAC participation. So I feel like next year it will increase. So we've been brainstorming a lot of ideas, but if anyone has more, just send them our way. Matanzas High School, they have a huge, strong support with their students and family engagement throughout several campus and activities this week and this month. They hosted their very first outdoor Grinch movie night, so thanks to district for helping set up that huge movie theater setup. Breakfast with Santa, it was very well organized, games, books, giveaways, pancakes, hot chocolate, Santa. So thank you so much for all the support there and working really hard academically. And Matanzas, they continue to highlight their student opportunities. So athletes, return of the dance program, which will actually be tomorrow, December 18th. And several career-focused learning experiences. And then our sheriff department, they actually came and spoke with the criminal justice. So thank you so much for that partnership. And SAC will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. So if anyone is interested, we'd love to have you there. EPAC did not have a meeting this month, but just know that if you are a parent or family that has any type of student with any type of special needs, they work really great to collaborate and support families. They take ideas and make things happen with the district. So Dr. Halliday is the one to reach out to for that. Virtual Teen Hall, we just had the other night. It was incredible. Our two student school board members, they always lead that. And so this one was held by Ava. She did amazing. It was budgeting, credit card, taxes. Lots of middle school and high schoolers were there. So I highly encourage parents to, if you can, participate and get your student to register. They get lots of hours for that as well. Very student-led discussion and meaningful engagement. We have a focus on Flagler Youth Coalition. They partner a lot with the Virtual Teen Hall. So they have an event that is going to be Friday, December 19th, 6 to 8 at the Espanola Community Park in Bunnell. So families, feel free to come and join the games and fun, and of course our partnership with our pals. For Florida School Board Association, so just a reminder, January 28th and 29th is the day in the legislature. So board members, you know, if you're planning to attend, make sure let Ariel know. We will be working with our Representative Greco and Tom Leak to discuss some of our priorities right here in Flagler County. And we're focusing a lot on Secure Rural Schools program. So for those that aren't aware, Flagler schools, we could potentially receive anywhere from $1.5 to $2.5 million right here in Flagler County. So that's kind of what we're working towards, and we're just working really hard behind the scenes for that. So fingers crossed. And then February 19th for all FSBA regional meeting from 1 to 4 in Putnam County. So if anyone is interested, school board members, that is available, and let Ariel know. And lastly, with FSBA, we learned a lot about the governor's proposed budget. So you may have seen that in email, on the news, newspaper. So it is a proposed budget, but it includes $30.6 billion for Florida's K through 12 public schools, including $16.6 billion in record state funding. My huge takeaway is potentially the $300 million for Safe Schools funding and $190 million for student mental health support. So hopefully that does go through. And then the Small School District Council Consortium, I'm now part of that, so myself and Mr. Furry. So we attended, some of us at the in Tampa, our consortium meeting, and we just kind of talked about legislative updates, so stay tuned for that. Lots of things going on, and that concludes my liaison updates. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's certainly a busy time of year. First, just a shout out to Rimfire. They held an after-school event on holidays around the world, which was delightful. They served food from all sorts of different cultures and shared different ways, different areas of the globe celebrate their own holidays and recognize this time of year. So that was wonderful. And we had numerous parents, also FPC and Matanzas volunteers there. And the Rimfire chorus was adorable and sang several songs in different languages, which was amazing. I also attended the FTC Advisory Committee, so Flagler Technical College. And they have developed in conjunction with other career and technical colleges in Florida their legislative platform. And they're looking primarily to amend the language in the Florida Statute 1008.3A to include all graduates from Florida Public High School and those that complete a career certification program 450 hours or longer in length with satisfactory grades are considered post-secondary and work-ready basic skills exempt. And so that they have 3 other platform items. I won't go into those in detail, but that's one of the items that they're really working hard to progress. We also have several updates from the legislative side. As a member of the legislative liaison piece, I've jotted down some notes to share with you all. Let me make sure I've got the right one up here. So as you may know, that the governor has submitted his initial proposal for 26-27 school year, well, legislative and fiscal year. And so there, in it, I do commend the legislation in terms of increasing per student funding, which is always welcome and beneficial, but caution that that includes the voucher. So it's a little bit watered down and distilled across the different sectors of who needs to use that money. So I'm hoping to see in greater detail how that's going to play out and how that budget may be tweaked going forward. In addition, there's the property tax relief proposal, House Bill 209. Obviously, without a replacement for the millage that the school districts receive, if that were to go through, and or some mitigation in terms of how they implement the property tax relief, that could substantially impact a school district's ability in order to receive those state funds, which inevitably would cause us to have to seek local funds with different means. And so we'll keep an eye out for that. Additionally, there are several other items on the legislation that will be potentially have impact for us, and I'll keep you all updated in terms of that. The other item is part of the Tobacco-Free Florida, Mr. Finelli, Mr. Freeman attended. I was not able to make the November meeting, but I do have notes. One of the initiatives that the group really wants to move forward on is creating a maximum distance that vendors of tobacco and vaping products can sell or build new establishments in terms of the distance from a public school. And there were a couple of items related to our involvement in terms of, at each school there is a Students Against Tobacco, and there's typically a school liaison. We're trying to make sure we have that full participation, and Mr. Finelli was going to make sure that we've got a contact, a sponsor at each school. And then coming in January, FPC has a Students Against Tobacco, or SWAT, Students Working Against Tobacco, I believe is the acronym. And so they're very involved at FPC. I do enjoy seeing the students involved in those activities, and also taking an action towards those initiatives that we know really are healthy, and the younger that we can keep students away from tobacco, the better. That's all I've got.
All right, I'll start with the Chamber of Commerce. Last week, December 12th, they had a speed networking event. This was held at Daytona State College campus. It was a great chance to network with other local businesses. The Chamber will also be holding a Meet Your Neighbor at Sea cruise this coming February with Royal Caribbean. And that information is posted on their website for anyone interested. And the Lead Flagler class will also be held this February. This is a diverse program that covers many programs that impact our community, so it's definitely something to check out. The Flagler County Education Foundation on February 17th, Tuesday, they will have their Mardi Gras ball, and this will be held at Grand Haven. Okay, lots of events for the Flagler Auditorium. Let's see, this month they had their they brought the Navy Southeast Band, and over 2,000 free tickets were provided to the community. The chorus and band also had a holiday extravaganza on December 9th. And the Bronx Wanderers brought a holiday show from Vegas. And our students, FPC and Matanzas, also got to be a part of that, and I hear that they did really amazing, and so great job to them. And then December 17th will be Christmas in Killarney. Tickets are $5 for children under 12. Let's see, you can look forward to Irish traditions during the holidays with a Broadway-style show. Coming up in January, they have several events also posted on their website. Okay, for Bunnell Elementary, last Friday they had their winter festival, which included food trucks, hot chocolate, DJ games, snow machine. This week is Holiday Spirit Week for them, and they are also having lots of Capturing Kids' Hearts Awards for positive behavior, so it's nice to see that. And for Wadsworth, December 9th, they had their arts night, which included an art walk, gallery exhibition, young authors, poetry, music workshops, crafts, and STEM activities. And this week they will also have, every day will be holiday dress-up day. And lastly, Flagler Historical Society, they had some events, some Christmas events, which included their holiday open house potluck and their Christmas charity tea event. Okay, that's it for me. All right, moving on. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
We do not.
Do we have any public comments?
We do not.
We'll move on to 6.01, school start times.
Good afternoon, Board, Chair, Superintendent Moore. All right, so we are coming back before you with results from our stakeholder survey on school start times. As you may remember, just some of the background on House Bill 733 is what required middle schools to start no earlier than 8 o'clock and high schools to start no earlier than 8:30. And then it was amended by Senate bill, so the rule currently reflects that schools are able to make a local decision and submit a report to the Department of Education by June 1st if they are keeping with their current start times or not moving forward with changing them. One of the requirements of that report is that we communicate the benefits of later start times with our community and families and gather public input. And so we are doing that through the stakeholder survey and then offering time for our stakeholders to give public comment. We had the survey published for the past month, and we've had about 2,000 responses, which I think is pretty
great.
good representation. And so you can see the large majority of those responses were from parents and guardians. 25% of those respondents are Flagler Schools employees, and then 46% of those employee respondents are also parents. So very large parent voice that we received with the stakeholder survey. And Louise is going to walk you through some of the results.
So we added this question based on our conversation at the last meeting about how people would feel about students from different grade bands riding together on the same buses, which used to be part of our model before we went to having planning back in the day. When we originally had students sharing buses, we were on a 2-tier hybrid system, which meant that we had elementary was solely riding by themselves, but our middle and high school, there were some shared routes between them. So they might drop students off at Indian Trails and then continue the route forward with the students going to Matanzas or the Buddy Taylor and FPC route as well. So we added this question, and this question is probably the one that we had the most decisive response on when you go through the rest of the data, and you were able to see that both employees and parents, guardians alike had over 40% preference that students ride only with others in their grade band. And then we further asked the question about if they would only support it for certain grade combinations, because the reality is if we are to proceed with exploring changing school start times, we would likely have to have elementary riding with high school or elementary riding with middle school in order to accommodate the new school start times and go back to a 2-tier hybrid system. So when you look at those two collectively, we have about 70% of employees are against having a combined route if it were to be elementary with high school or anything other than 6-8 with 9-12 realistically, and 67 or 68% of parents and guardians. So again, this was probably the most decisive piece of data that we're going to look at today. The next set of questions, we asked parents and employees and students what their feelings were about, like if they agree, neutral, disagree, or does not apply to them, about whether or not they thought it'd be disruptive for dropping off students, disruptive to extracurriculars, cause complications for transportation, additional costs for family, or a change in positions for our employees. And just by looking at the data, you can see that for most of these, with the exception of the changing jobs, people agree that the employees agree that it would be disruptive for pickup and drop off, disruptive for extracurricular activities, and disruptive for transportation, and may cause families to incur additional costs for before and after school care. There were some free responses that also addressed concerns about what that might look like, because currently some parents, and we'll get to that when we get to the parent survey portion, but some parents with their current position and the start times of the school at which their child attends doesn't require for them to have after school or before school care, but a change in start times would certainly drive that. We didn't have as many people say that a change in start times may cause them to change schools or jobs, because their work time may not be that far off, because their contracted time doesn't necessarily align with what the school student start times are. When we go to the stakeholder group for the parents and guardians, again, very similar questions. And there were some additional ones. The last one I'd like to point out is that a change in start times may cause you to consider other educational options for your students. And we had roughly 20% of respondents say that they agree with that statement, that a change in start times may cause them to have to explore additional options. The rest of the time, it seemed that parents and guardians did feel that a change in start times might allow for their child to get additional sleep on school nights. However, when we get to the student feedback, they did not agree with that statement. The students themselves seemed overwhelmingly not to agree with that. So it almost seems like they're going to stay up no matter what, or they're going to sleep in no matter what. So again, the data was ambiguous at best that we got back. It doesn't seem that people are overly jumping to make this great change or wholeheartedly against it. So if we jump to the student stakeholder feedback, I do want to point out that the last bar graph should actually be addressing extracurricular activities. My apologies, when we transferred the slides over, there was a pasting issue, so my apologies. That third one is supposed to be addressing extracurriculars like work, sports, and all of those areas. But again,
I see. So instead of home life twice for the student stakeholders. Okay,
yep, absolutely. You. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
So again, we're seeing that 43% of students, when they were addressing if this will allow them to get enough sleep on school nights, they were neutral on it. And the amount that agreed, a similar amount disagreed. So it was kind of a wash there. They don't really feel like it would be a change would be disruptive to their home life, and they don't really feel it'd be disruptive to their extracurriculars. So the data, again, the biggest piece of data that I think gave us the most overwhelming response was related to transportation. Mm-hmm. And so I think if we had to proceed and continue with these are the options of start times, I think the data may be different, because when people saw what the changes could potentially be, it might cause them to think that there would be disruptions that we haven't captured with the not knowing what those times might be.
We did analyze the open-ended comments that our stakeholders responded to, and you can see up here, kind of what we found. Some folks said that there would be a conflict with their work schedule, particularly in the morning. High school students who have after-school jobs or participate in extracurricular activities, that was noted as an impact more for the parents and employees than the students said. Some said that the middle school start time is too early, and even suggested swapping middle and high school. There were some concerns about the elementary start time, and then looking at childcare. So the early mornings for elementary, but then looking at what they would do in the afternoon in terms of childcare. And then there were a few folks that again, how I mentioned swapping start times for middle and high school. There were certainly some comments about bus overcrowding and safety of mixing the grade levels on buses, which we saw reflected in the earlier data. So, at this point, we brought this back to you. Our plan really is based on this data to continue with, preparing that report for the Department of Education, and unless we hear otherwise. So, if there are any questions, we're happy to entertain those.
We've always thought about the transportation and start times really around the grade bands. I wonder if we analyzed it for feeder schools instead, which would almost make it easier for families, because if all their students across multiple grade bands were on the same schedule, for example, let's say Matanzas, Indian Trails, and Belterre, what if they were on, an A schedule starting at 8 a.m. and then FPC, Buddy Taylor, and Bunnell, Old Kings, for example, whatever those feeder schools are, were on, you know, the later schedule or whichever. But that way, all of their children from elementary, middle, and high are all on the same schedule. And then I'm wondering if it would allow us to reduce and not have that third transportation route that is pushing us to require that middle school start time of being so early.
So years ago, we did have the elementaries. We had 3 different sets of start times across the 5 schools, and it was closely aligned to the feeder patterns that, like, certain schools that were on the same feeder pattern, they actually had that differentiated time for the elementary level. But our middles and highs have always had the same start and end times. We can certainly take that back to transportation to ask them, but I think one of the issues is we don't have Belterre, Indian Trails, Matanzas is a pure feeder pattern. But we do have some of our elementary schools that will eventually feed it into both. So we'd almost go back to having elementary schools have all different start times depending. Is that kind of the proposal, or would it be to perhaps have middle schools at different times and high schools at different times?
I'm thinking that maybe there is a merging of, eventually, if we've got to tweak enrollments at certain schools, that we think about, or we do the research now to determine if we created clear feeder patterns, would it allow us to mix the start times for the mixed grade bands, which would ease things for parents. It's something that I've heard some other districts do, which actually was some feedback from the community in those districts. I think St. John's was one, in order to try to retain more students in their schools, as opposed to going to maybe a charter school that had a more ideal start time, or they could have all their children, you know, in a particular schedule.
Wouldn't they be on the same bus though then, if that?
That's what
if it
I would
was-
like to get some insight on, to see what those numbers would look like. Traditionally, 2 elementary kids ride the buses more frequently than, let's say, high school, who there's a lot of driving. So to me, really, it's the elementary to middle, and if we would be okay with middle and high, that's possibly, I think, something that could potentially work and make things easier for families.
And when getting that information, we would need to have transportation identify what that would look like for number of routes. Because just sitting thinking of it right now in our time supporting transportation, I think it would cause us to have to add some additional routes. But we can definitely do that research and find out what that would look like additional routes.
And I do appreciate that you added that question, the transportation one, just because when I was reviewing it, I mean, and then, you know, when you think about it as a parent, you know, or a child, you know, so I think that question was really great to add, so thank you, because I think it just kind of just shows just a little bit of like what the parents are thinking, you know, the guardians. And I do want to add, I truly believe in the science of more sleep, but I also, just researching and talking with parents and our, you know, families and even teachers, but children too, talking to them, the way Flagler County is set up, at least now, like our infrastructure, and then the safety, you know, you have to think of safety is always going to be number one, and science is there. I love it. Sleep is great. I love sleep. I think everyone does, but I feel that our infrastructure it may not be built for it, at least not yet. So I like that you guys did all of this research, because I think it helps from the outside to kind of like see, like, could it happen, could it not, but are we built for this? Like, we're not like other counties. We're different, but I don't know, I really like this data that you put up, so thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate we had a large number of respondents.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yes.
glad that we heard from
a lot.
I do see though, it seems that the employees versus parents and guardians, there's a little bit of a split there
Yeah.
in terms of their feelings. So, which I can understand, changing your personal schedule is always difficult. Yeah.
And I think too, parents and teachers and children, it's not the end. Like if you have more information to add, you can always email, email your information. Like if you missed this email that was sent out to put your input in, but definitely, I do appreciate that we had a lot of input, so.
I think it's, as we look at this, acknowledging the science and, you know, all of us, you know, valuing what it is that the science says, also looking at our ability to do it and not cause a disruption to our community, which is why the legislators went back and said, here's what the science says, and we need to make sure we inform families of what the science says, but also as a community, we have to identify what is possible for us as far as being able to get those schedules aligned. And our community, this is not a new discussion to our community. Our community, they voiced over the years that there is not a desire at this time to make the swap to have elementary starting earlier. We do often get back from families around the middle school time. However, when we really look at it across some of the changes that would need to be made in order to accommodate a swap in middle school, I don't think that the pros really outweigh the cons when you survey the stakeholders, and we've seen that over the last few years in their responses.
Any other comments? Thank you both for your hard work on this, and I'm glad we got a lot of responses on this.
So at this time, what are the next steps, Dr. O'Brien?
So this was our next step, to review that stakeholder feedback, and there were some updates there during the rulemaking on what is included in the required report. But based on the feedback that we got, we're planning to prepare the report for the Department of Education at this
And
point.
then we'll follow up with the board with the information around the transportation
Yes.
data. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Ms. Foster.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. O'Brien, and then Dr. O'Brien will be staying for 6.02 instructional calendar, and Ms. Ferrero.
Good afternoon, Chair,
Hello.
Board, Superintendent. Nice to see you again. We are returning today to answer questions from last week, and if you have any additional questions for us ahead of the decision tonight, we are more than hopefully ready to answer those questions. The one main question that came up last week was, what does professional learning look like for surrounding districts? We did send some more specific information, but to answer for the public, we are pretty comparable to surrounding districts, with us having 24 hours total a year of called in professional learning time on those 4 days, with the other surrounding counties being like 19 required, 19 possible, 28 required, and then even some other counties with just 6 required hours, but then based on schools, different hours for what that looks like as well. A lot of the surrounding counties use their early release days for professional learning communities, which certainly have professional learning embedded in them, but they are not a district-initiated professional learning time. They're more of a teacher-led time.
Well, it depends on how it's structured.
Correct.
You know, so I've seen where other districts, even here, that there are required elements for those PLC meetings. I guess with St. John's here, they've spelled out specifically their PL days.
Yes.
When we look at what's provided from us, you've rolled in pre-planning, which not all of those days can be used for PL, right? I think it's even in the contract.
Yep.
Right, so, two of those are dedicated to PL, and then 2 additional days throughout the school year. And then we have the separate teacher introduction.
Yes.
And then the weekly PLCs, but that's what is difficult, because to do those PLCs, we're taking away the teacher's planning. And I know we say, well, you're planning with your group, but it's still not allowing you to return those emails, return the phone calls for parents, grade, all of that. And so that's where I'm concerned and would like to be able to provide more space for that, especially when we continue to have more and more out-of-field individuals. And if we really want to move the needle on many of our school improvement plans, it comes down to professional learning and instruction. So I would like us to see next year entertain or explore the ability of how do we find and carve out that time separate from the teacher's required planning time.
For clarification, next year is in.
Right, because we
when we
cannot
look at
do that this
27,
year.
28.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
I think it will be very important for us to get common language too. When we identify if we're going to do some type of early release, what will be the purpose of that time? Is that time professional learning? Is that time professional learning communities? Is that time for teacher work? Like what that looks like, and be very much common language across. So that when someone hears we're doing an early release of any sort for professional learning, they can think of it from the lens of, it's going to have the elements of professional learning in it, be it it's going to be led by the school, by a teacher, whomever it's going to be led by, or is the purpose of it to be professional learning community, which is going to be more so centered around the 4 questions and preparation for what instruction looks like in their classroom in the near future.
I think that is something I would appreciate insight from teaching and learning in terms of what's working. So those schools or grades or teachers that are really putting that PLC community to work in its best practice, if those strategies are working, then we can include that. If we feel like we have school-specific PL that needs to be met for those areas, or even break them up. Hey, these teachers are newer teachers. We need them to attend this kind of PL. I think also around that is expectations for not using it to schedule your half day or whatever it may be. I don't want to see an increase of absences around that. But I do feel, to me, what we're trying to do is provide that focused PL time, increase the ability to preserve the planning time, and set some expectations. Though if we're going to do this, it can't be a loss of instructional time when teachers are going to maybe leave early, right? They've got to be there and participating in it.
And I think also like preserving what the number, our instructional time that we currently have. So what is our current instructional minutes for the school year? How do we do that and add in some form of early release into that, defining what that time will look like and what the flexibility will be in that. And I think that if we're saying we are considering this because of the amount of individuals that are working that are not coming from a teacher preparation program, then we may need to get their voice as well and say, what is it that you need if we were to consider this time, so that they have an opportunity to express the needs that they have.
And that's what I was going to ask in request potentially. I think it's important to hear from the teachers at the schools. So just like we just did a stakeholder survey for transportation and changing school times, The teachers need to express what they need and want, because I know a lot of people in here have been in the classroom, but you're not in the classroom now, right? So let's see what will work for them. And then also, I wanted to share, and I know I sent into email, but a lot of districts, they do something similar. So whether it's an hour release on Mondays early, or half days, you know, so let's see what might work or could work, and maybe it won't work. But one district said, you know, pros for having an hour release, and it's strategic every Monday. Teachers get real meaningful time to plan and meet and problem solve. So obviously, that's how their district set it up. Better instructional alignment across all grade levels, less burnout since professional development isn't always after hours, predictable for families, so it's very consistent. So all the families know on Monday, this is what happens. They're not gonna be taking retakes for tests or getting tutoring on that specific time frame, and it's just everyone knows. They did, you know, there's cons for everything, so childcare for some could be a concern. So that would be something stakeholders, you know, if it's an hour, you know, an hour may not be too bad, or half day, maybe that's better, who knows. If professional development isn't well organized, then it's wasted. So we obviously would want to make sure it's completely organized. And, you know, I think just like what Ms. Moore said, like see what our teachers, what will help them, because at the end of the day, it's if there's something we're not doing or doing right, we want to continue it. But I think changing it now, because you guys worked really, really hard on that calendar, and I feel like it's a great idea for potentially the next calendar year, and then only just move forward, because I know right now it looks great, and I didn't have any other feedback, good or bad, from parents or families. So, but I think looking into it for the future.
I think also,
go ahead.
Sorry, taking a look at schools that did implement, school districts that did implement maybe an earlier release, what changes occurred in their data, right? Did this have the intended effect? So is there a school district that has done this for maybe 3 years, give to, you know, a little time to breathe, and what do the outcomes look like compared to prior, the start of the early release?
If we do some early release days, don't we have to make up that time somewhere else?
We would need to look at our instructional minutes,
Yeah.
as well as our instructional and our contractual minutes.
I think my only concern, because I know Volusia does this, is just the interruption in the normal day. Like, oh, it's Wednesday, I gotta get my child earlier, you know. So just something to think about for parents, as you were saying, work and those kind of things.
And I'm glad that Ms. Ferrer brought up the contract, because right now we're thinking about the benefits that it could bring to our instructional staff, but we also have to look at the support staff as well. What does this look like for support staff? Does this now mean that our transportation department and our paraprofessionals are going to reduce by 1 hour each week? Are we going to have those individuals working but not with student contact? So it's more than just looking at the benefits from the instructional piece of it. We also have to look at the support side, because there are staff members that we have that are only present when students are present. And so what does that look like for them over the course of the year as well?
And in my mind, those support facilitators, paras, they're asking for more training. Even the transportation department is asking for training in terms of student management. I mean, if you have to take the kids to school, you have to take them back. So I don't see how the bus route time would change. But you know, we're hearing more and more that there's a need for training even outside of the traditional teacher role. So this is a way that could benefit many of those folks.
And absolutely, and that's what I'm saying, we cannot think about it just from the lens of the teacher that's in the classroom, because we have to look at it from the lens of the entire organization and what that will, what impacts that will have on the entire organization.
Looking forward, I do have a shell of the 27-28 calendar prepared so that we can begin these conversations fairly shortly so we can get all of this
Mhm.
figured out.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The 26-27 instructional calendar is coming before you tonight we are requesting approval for the 26-27 instructional calendar that is presented.
Okay, 12.01, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
13.01, board member requests.
Nothing new for me.
Okay, we'll move on to closing comments.
Yep, I just want to thank everyone, especially with the calendar. I know that had to have been challenging, so thank you and for listening. And then the school teams, all the work for supporting our campuses, especially this last month, all the fun-free activities or affordable ones at all of our campuses. And we'll see you all tonight, so thank you so much.
Yeah, just reserve my comments for this evening.
Thank you, and we'll see you at 6 p.m.
We will see you at 6 p.m. Happy 84th day of school.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.